Good morning. This is a recording for Sunday, April 7th. For the past couple of days, we have been talking about various barriers to empathy, sympathy seeking, minimizing suffering of another person by trumping their experience, or at leasting them in some ways. Today, we will look at another way we avoid empathic connection. It is by convincing ourselves that we cannot really understand experiences that we have not actually had. But if we want to build connection networks, networks that really help us move from shame to empathy, we cannot reserve empathy for the select few who have had experiences that mirror our own. We must learn how to move past the situations and events that people are describing and toward the feelings and emotions that they're experiencing. And sometimes we may even feel ashamed because we don't know how to relate to someone who is different or connect with someone who faces unfair discrimination. And we get stuck. If we think, I'm a bad person because I cannot relate to this, or I'm a bad person because I have this and they don't, we get paralyzed. Brené Brown shares, I've come to a place in my life where unlearning prejudice is more important than avoiding situations where I might be accused of saying or doing the wrong thing. I've learned that it is better for me to accept the fact that I struggle with many of the same learned biases that other people do. This had allowed me to spend my energy unlearning and changing my prejudices, rather than proving that I didn't have any. When we are honest about our struggles, we are much less likely to get stuck in shame. And this is critical because shame diminishes our capacity to practice empathy. Ultimately, feeling shame about privilege actually perpetuates racism, sexism, classism, ageism, etc. I don't have to know exactly how you feel. I just have to touch a part of my life that opens me up to hearing your experience. And if I can touch this place, I stay out of judgment and I can reach out with empathy. This is where both personal and social healing can begin. Imagine what it would be like if we could only reach out to folks who have had our exact experiences. We would all be very much alone. Life experiences are like fingerprints. No two are exactly alike. But even if we've had what we believe is the exact same experience as someone else's, we can never really assume they feel exactly the same thing we would feel. Going back to the lens metaphor, there are just too many variables for any of us to experience anything the exact same way. And we have to acknowledge that. So, what Brené Brown suggests for dealing with situations when we think we cannot relate and therefore close ourselves off to any potential of empathy is what she calls digging deep. If we reach far enough into our own experiences, most of us can relate to anything. And most importantly, we can open ourselves to simply hearing what the other person's experience is about, simply being with them while they tell us their story, without trying to find the perfect response. Just being there, open to listening and hearing, is enough. It is easy to think that it is safer to distance ourselves rather than dig for empathy. But as social worker Marky McMillan writes, empathy is a gift of validation. that no matter how many times it is given, always returns us to our own truth. Empathy heals another at exactly the same time it is healing me. So for the practice part of our session today, let's try this digging deep for empathy that Brené Brown talks about. We will look at some examples of shame experience from Brené Brown's research. For each, she has labeled some of the emotions that she heard in the interviews and also posed empathy questions that might help us connect with that experience ourselves. So let's just see what this exercise evokes in us. As always, take a comfortable position and take a few moments to settle. Settle into your body, your heart, your mind. Settle into this moment, right here, right now. See if you can find spaciousness in your breathing, reminding yourself that you are bigger than any given experiences. And letting all the experiences of the present moment, physical sensations, thoughts, emotions, to simply flow through you as energy that they are, without struggle. Now let's look at the first example from her book. Let's call it Experience 1. So Experience 1 is this. I am ashamed because I always hate my life. No matter what I have and no matter how much I have, I am always disappointed with my life. I always think to myself, if only I had this or that, I'd be happy. And then I get this or that, and I'm still not happy. It's a horrible part of me, and I don't know how to make it go away. I can talk about it with anyone because everyone is sick of hearing how disappointed I am about everything all the time. And that's what's shameful to me. I can never seem to pull it all together and find happiness. Now let's look at the emotions that may be behind this experience. This person clearly feels stuck, maybe angry, overwhelmed, disappointed, confused, lost, alone. And let's face it, we have all felt those emotions at times, even though we may not have had this direct experience that is described. So let's dig deep. Let's dig for empathy. I'll pose some questions that Brené Brown lists in her book, and as you reflect on them, pay attention to what is happening in your body, in your breath, in your mind, and try to do it without judgment. This exercise is not about assigning blame or finding the quote-unquote correct way to be. It's just an exploration of what is, as always. So let's move on with the questions. Do you feel like happiness is always in front of you, and yet you cannot reach it? Do you ever set yourself up to be happy when you lose 20 pounds, or get a new house, or have another baby, or get promoted? Do you define success by what you have done, or by what you don't have? Do you ever dismiss what you do have because it must not be that great if you have it? Do you ever feel like people are sick of hearing you complain or vent? Now take a breath or two, maybe even open your eyes and shift your posture as we prepare to examine the next shameful experience. Experience number 2, described in Brené Brown's book. Shame is when my husband left me for another woman, and my son told me it was because I was a fat ass. He is only 14, and I don't think he means it, or at least I hope not. He's just used to hearing it from his father. Plus he is angry, and maybe he does think it's my fault. Maybe I think it's my fault. Now, what do we hear beyond the storyline? What are possible emotions this woman may be experiencing? Hurt, loss, anger, fear, grief, self-blame, confusion, isolation, maybe feeling trapped. Again, we've all experienced some or all of those emotions at times, right? So now let's try to dig deep so that we can eventually produce an empathic response. Again, as I go through the questions to ponder, let part of your attention stay with your body and notice what's happening in your heart, chest, and throat areas. What's happening with your breath? What thoughts do those questions evoke about the world, about yourself? No judgment, just exploring with compassion. Have you ever struggled not to blame yourself? Have you ever been the target of someone's anger and grief? Have you ever had to take care of someone when you could barely take care of yourself? Have you ever had a child, parent, a partner insults? Again, let's take a couple of breaths, maybe change your posture, and let's examine the third shame experience. This is the description of it, this is the story. When I think of shame, I think of being sexually abused when I was growing up. I think about what that's done to my life and how it's changed everything. It's not just the abuse itself, it's everything you have to deal with for the rest of your life. It's like you feel different from anyone else. Nothing is ever normal for you. Everything is about that. I am not allowed just to have a regular life. That's the thing that made me who I am. And so everything is stained by that. That is what shame is for me. What's behind this story? What emotions may this person be experiencing? Feeling labeled, dismissed, misunderstood, maybe grief, loss, frustration, anger. Now let's dig deep. As I go through the questions, let part of your attention stay with your body and notice what's happening without judgment. Have you ever been defined by an experience, found yourself unable to get out from under a reputation or an incident? Have you ever been unfairly labeled? Have you ever had people attribute your behaviors to an identity you don't really deserve? Have you ever fought to overcome something only to find others less than willing to move past it? Once again, take a couple of breaths. Maybe open your eyes, maybe shift around a bit. And let's look at the last shame experience that Brené Brown analyzes. This is the story. When I made partner at the law firm, I went into a terrible depression. Everything I had worked for seemed like nothing. Every day I went to work thinking, oh my God, when are they going to catch on to the fact that I really don't know what I'm doing? I didn't deserve this promotion. I don't deserve partnership. They are going to find out that I'm really not good. And the pressure was so much that I finally had to step down. I don't think people respect me anymore. I just couldn't do it. I don't know if I was really that good and deserved it, or that I really was never that good and was faking it. It's just too confusing. What's behind this story? Fear, self-blame, confusion, overwhelm, isolation, insecurity, loss, disappointment. So now let's dig deep into ourselves to see that we can actually relate to the emotions, even if we didn't have this exact experience, this exact story. Remember, as I go through the questions to ponder, let part of your attention stay with your body and notice without judgment what is happening. Have you ever felt like an imposter? Like people think you're more capable than you really are? Have you ever feared getting caught when you didn't do anything wrong? Have you ever felt the pressure of disappointing others, disappointing yourself? Now place your hands on your heart and send the energy of loving kindness to yourself for being here, for going through this challenging exercise. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well in body and mind. May I feel loved, cared for, at ease. May I know that I am enough. May I touch deep, natural peace. And as you gently let go of your practice, as always, scan your body and notice what's going on for you right now, physically, emotionally, mentally. How are you, really? As you go through your day today, I invite you to continue with this reflection. Do you sometimes think it's safer to distance yourself rather than dig deep for empathy? Remember, Empathy is a gift of validation that no matter how many times it is given, always returns us to our own truth. Empathy heals another at exactly the same time it is healing me. As always, enjoy your discoveries, and if you're inspired to share, do so here or in our private group. Thank you so much for being here today. Have a gorgeous day, and I will see you tomorrow.